My goal is to share my journey of making disciples who make disciples. September 29, nope, 25. September 25. And this is kind of my update on how we're doing with disciple making. My goal is to share my journey of making disciples. And my hope is that it can help somebody. And to be honest, it's kind of helping me in my own reflection as I talk out what's kind of going on. So, what's happened over the last, I guess, I don't know when the last video was, but anyways, I'll just yak a little bit over the last while. So we came out of our prayer week. We set a week aside of prayer. We're trying to increase our week of prayer, and we completed that. And I think so. There's a couple things that stand out for me. One is a realization. Actually, I already knew this, but it was impressed upon me even more, and it came about through conversations with people, and then probably a deeper conversation with my wife and I as we were driving down the street, and the simple comment of, well, two areas. That's one. There was a gentleman who was most likely on drugs, and I had just said, I said, it's so sad, the reality of what drugs do to you, and this man's situation, my heart broke for him. There's nothing I could help with. And I'm, where you are, I know you probably experience poverty at some level, and it exists in some way. But there was a real heaviness this past week around that as I reflect over and the brokenness of just where my city's at. And it's like, some of it's very visible. You see it on the streets. Some of it, even as I, over the past year, have talked with different business owners, and the challenge they have with crime in the area that exists. I have, when I sit with people across from me and hear their stories, one of the gentlemen that I'm meeting with right now is, had lost his wife a few months ago, and just walking with him through the pain and of the grief of that, and what Jesus is, what's it mean to follow Jesus? And he's a pretty new believer. Like, it's in an interesting situation as I walk with him, and normally I would do a few sessions and try to get them into a grief counselor or grief group, and he's part of some of that, which is good. But I've really felt led to just keep meeting with him, and we'll see where that goes. I was challenged on the prayer week. How do I define success for the prayer week? So we probably had maybe 20 of the physical devotions that people took. I have no idea how many of the downloads people took at the moment. It's not set up to track that, and probably should look into that, because it's always about engagement. I think that's the key for how do we measure this? Well, it's about engagement. And so there's a whole lot I don't know. And I told people, like, hey, if all you can do is 5 minutes a day or 5 minutes over the week, then do that, because it's just getting people to take that one step. And I know some people did more and some people did less. I had a whole bunch of videos. I even wondered, was that worth it to spend all the time recording and editing and posting for these videos, which take a while, by the way. And some did watch them. They're not huge views, but we're not huge church either. But I do think it's an area to grow in, and it's a skill set that I can grow in. So we have, so that's, that happened. And we had, I think we had good engagement. At least the conversation in the life of the church took place. So Wednesday night we had, I don't know, we might have had about 8 come out to the Wednesday. We had 2 gatherings. So Wednesday night we had a gathering, and I had stations all set up for people to walk through, and then a community station at the end where coffee was. And I just asked, how can we pray for you? And then some chit chat took place as well. I was kind of tired, wanted to go home, and a couple of people did leave, but many of them just, like, they stood there sat around the table for a while and talked, and that was, it was really good. I just kind of wanted to go home, but it was good conversation. And another opportunity as well through that to be able to influence a small group, and that will build over time. Saturday we did our prayer walk, and I was joking with the intern that we have, because last time it was just me and her was it. That was all that came. Nobody came to the last prayer walk, Part of it's all timing, part of it's education, and I'm sure there's some other things, but those are at least the two that I'm aware of at the moment. And but we had, well, including myself, we had 8 people come out. One person who was gonna come apologize, said, "Hey, I'm not gonna make it. Something's come up," and hey, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So off they went, and we had people, and we kind of ended up going in 3 groups around the neighborhood. A really good moment of prayer. Great to be able to connect, and I'd encourage you to add that rhythm into your journey, and let me hear. And sometimes after about 2 hours after the event, maybe 3 actually, I met with another gentleman who has a ministry. He's working with Filipinos here in the city, but he also works with an organization, a church really, that he was part of starting, that came, I think, out of Saudi Arabia, but it's got all kind of some hands all over, and he's part of our church, and incredible story. Maybe someday I can bring him on and he can share the work he's done, and what God's doing there. But he talked about how they did a driving prayer walk, in the sense of there's a little town south of us that they're trying to get some work going in, and so they were down there doing driving around just praying, and they have a Filipino lady that wants to get a group going, and so she's working on that, and but prayer was part of that, and that was part of the conversation. So I really do believe in these weeks. I think they're important. I spend extra time. That's a little hard too, at some levels, because it means you have to decide. Okay, I'm not going to do this because this is priority. And so, how does that work in the midst of the rhythm? And I'm still working on that journey. I'd love to hear what's prayer look like for you. What's worked? What's been your challenge around the rhythms of prayer in disciple making and moving? I did have, just the thought came to me coming out of the prayer week. 2 people in 2 different ways talked about just what was happening in the life of the church here, and they used the words "keep the pedal down," and they recognized that there are some things here I've been driving pretty hard on, and is a lot for the congregation where they're at, but don't give up, and keep going. And I think the timing's right on it, because there's moments I've wondered, am I going too fast? Do I need to pull back on some areas? I'm always wrestling with how to use my time, how to manage my time, and what that looks like. And I think that's going to be an ongoing question. But there were a few affirmations for the prayer work that, like, hey, we're moving in the right direction. And so keep going. But I do think there's a balance, in the sense of I don't like the word balance, because it makes it think like everything has equal value, and that's just not true. And so there's a constant managing of time in that area. The other thing I was going to talk about is, over the summer, and really before that, I've been praying for, I've been praying that God's kingdom would be established in my neighborhood, in my city. That I've been praying for the authority of God to be known, God's glory to be known in my city. I've been praying for workers for the harvest. I've been praying that God would lead me to people of peace, and that through that, I've been thinking, I need this third place. I'm here in my office at the moment for the church. I can't where do I meet non-believers? Now, saying that, God has been gracious to us in, I have a meeting today with someone who literally walked into the door and said, so I'm a brand new believer, and so I'm meeting with him today to hear his story. Of course, my hope then is to be able to, how do I, either I'm going to disciple him, or who do I connect him with, or what group do I put him with? There's one group that might start in November that we're looking at for new believers and young in faith. So that might actually be a group, but I got to meet with him for a bit to kind of assess, in a sense, and go from there. So we have those, I'm just amazed when that takes place. And so God's bringing people like that. So that's part of the answer, I think, to some of that prayer, but also, do I join a club? Do I, I got all kinds of ideas. That's never the problem. But a door opened up, and I can't remember if I've talked about this before, so if I did, sorry, I'm going to again. But a door opened up where I was asked, would I consider helping as a police chaplain, and doing that for a couple hours each week. And so I've been really wrestling with that. And again, the issue becomes time management, is how do I manage time, given all of I'm doing? And it means being better at how I manage that, and letting go of things, and saying no to things. And making sure my own health. I come off a really busy, the first 2 weeks of this month, we're really busy. Now, the last two weeks of the month, the rhythm has slowed down to the point of like, with the prayer week last week, I didn't actually book a lot of appointments this week, and so it's a little more open this week, and it's kind of, is that okay? And I was reminded in the discipleship huddle I'm part of with some other leaders of just like, hey, take that rhythm. It was really busy. There's lots of my personal life, my business on the side as well. Had some things that picked up in there, and I know the first week in October I'll be coming back to some of that business work. Still wrestling with the role of the business in my life, but all that to say is, so it's been a little slower, but I've decided to walk through the door of the police chaplain and see where it goes. So Thursday I have a meeting. We have a normal, we call it ministry council. It's our governing board. So I have a normal meeting with them. They're aware. I had asked them to pray through that. They're aware I was wrestling through that, and I'm going to let them know. And of course, they'll ask some questions. They'll be worried about time management, all those things. I am going to push them and say like, hey, I want to use some regular hours for the church for that, because I think it's this open door. It's going to allow me to get into places I could never get to in front of people who need Jesus. And generally speaking, I would never have an audience, a platform with them. Part of this, I have no clue how this is going to work out. I've seen people do it. I've never done it before. And I'm excited to see what God's going to do through this. And so that journey is going to probably come out. I'll probably talk a little bit about it on here. But I'm praying for open doors. My goal is to be able to serve those men and women as they serve the city in their role as police. And how do I come alongside them to support them? Hey, if you got any wisdom, drop that down below. Good resources as well for me to be able to check out. I'd love to do that. But that's a new journey that is popping up in my life. So I'm going to walk through that. And I got a phone call this morning with the police chief again. And I've been sending it back and forth, really, really trying to consider if I should do this. And I think it's a good opportunity. And I don't know where it goes. But at the moment, there's a door that seems to be open. And so I'm going to check that out and be able to walk through that. This week, I've also, the last, I don't know how many days, because I can't remember when it started, but the Lausanne movement conference is on, where they gather. It's not a new group. They've been around like 50 years. It's new to me. Maybe you know about it. And so I'll try to drop a address in the description down below, or put up here on the screen maybe too. We'll see. One of those areas. I don't know. But so this week I've been getting up quite early. For me, quite early. Maybe it's not for you, but coming into the office or at home staying, but working through, some of it I've just done sermon, just kind of getting right into work, and it's been good for me. I do well writing my sermons in the morning, but I also, I've been catching what is their evening service, because it's on the other side of the world, and it's just stirred my heart, and it's really good to see that as they speak about the gospel going around the world, and for the work they're doing, and it's really this kind of partnership of groups. But my heart has been stirred for the kingdom of God and for the work that He's called us to, and so I'm excited to see that, and to be from a distance watching in the midst of that. The last thing I'll share today, let me wrap up with this, is as I look about how do we make disciples. I was challenged. I'm working on my talk in the morning for the November 16th event coming up, and doing some research and reflection. And one of the things I was challenged on in my research was sometimes we can really push the mission of the church, and it's the end all, at the expense of not caring for people. And one of the things that I've been pushing here is like, hey, we have this many people. How do we care for that many people? Like, forget about trying to reach more people and getting in front of people. Now, we're going to do that. But like, how do we just deal with the people we have? And part of it is, how do we care for the people? How do we help those in the fringe move in? How do we get those numbers into discipleship groups? And I've been praying through that. So I think part of my talk is going to talk a little bit around this seesawing, I don't know, have a better image right now, but of caring for people. And part of the best way to care for people is getting them into groups, right? These discipleship groups where they're learning scripture, they're growing together, praying together, caring for one another. Because I can't do it all. I shouldn't do it all. Oh, I'm going to try and get a team together that's going to help with some of that caring. But ultimately, they should be in a team. One of our groups, someone just moved, and the group stepped in to help move. Now, we invited other people to come and do it, but it was the group doing it. That's congregational care. That's where it's supposed to happen. And I think some of the research I was reading, and at least where maybe I'm being pushed and to speak on, is this balance of caring for people is part of discipling people. And so how does that mesh together? I don't know what your experience is like, but I think sometimes we can forget the caring side. And Jesus said they will know him by how we love each other. And so we got to grow and be healthy in that area. So there's a bit of my journey this past week, or since the last time I recorded, because I can't remember. Sorry. But I'd love to hear your journey. What's your experience? What resources are you reading? Who are you talking with? How can I pray for you? What's going on? Share those down in the comments. Let's interact a little bit there. And hey, go and make disciples. Talk to you later.